All right, get ready to dive deep, really deep, into Neoplatonism. We've got some fascinating excerpts here from Testo and Calato, and we're going to use those excerpts to unpack, well, the philosophy of Plotinus. This guy Plotinus, he really wrestled with the big mysteries of reality, and he tried to show us a path to something he called the One.
You know what's really cool about Neoplatonism?
What's that?
It's not just some old, dusty philosophy, just sitting on a shelf somewhere. It's like this dynamic school of thought. It takes Plato's ideas and it supercharges them, to give this total picture of reality. A reality where everything, and I mean everything, goes back to this single perfect source.
Okay, so this one sounds pretty elusive. How did Plotinus even describe it, if it's beyond our grasp?
He described it as, well, he said it's the ultimate source, the source of everything, the core of goodness and the origin of all being, everything that is. But the tough part is it's way beyond, our human brains can't even really get it,
I'm already feeling a little bit of a philosophical brain cramp here.
Yeah.
How can something be the cause of everything, like you said, the ultimate source, if we can't even understand it? That seems kind of contradictory.
Well, that's the paradox at the heart of it all, right?
Yeah.
Plotinus, he used this analogy of the sun. You can't look directly at it, right? It's too bright. But everything needs its light, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything grows and thrives because of it. The One, it kind of works the same way. It's like this unseen source, the force behind everything, but it's always a mystery.
So we're not talking about a god, a person up on a throne.
No, not at all. No, it's more like a principle, like a source of pure perfection, and everything else flows from that.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. And speaking of flowing, my sources, they talk about this thing called emanation. What's that about?
Emanation, that's a good one. It's one of the coolest things in Neoplatonism. It's imagine light, right, just radiating from a source. That's kind of how they saw everything coming from the One. Not like a traditional creation, but more like it's overflowing, you know what I mean? Like a natural outpouring of the One's, infinite perfection.
So instead of a deliberate creation, it's more like an inevitable consequence, it just has to happen.
Exactly. And this emanation, it leads to these levels of reality. And Neoplatonists, they call them hypostases. Imagine ripples spreading from a stone you drop in a pond. Each ripple, it's a bit further from the source, a little less defined.
Okay, hold on. I need to make sure I'm getting this. So these hypostases, they're steps down from the One. Each one's a different level of reality.
You got it. So first you have the One itself, totally pure and absolute. Then you have the intellect, and this is the world of perfect ideas. It's the blueprint of the entire universe. Imagine all the perfect forms and archetypes just existing there.
So it's this ultimate library of concepts where everything is in its purest form.
That's a great way to think about it.
Wow.
And then coming from the intellect, we have the third hypostasis, the soul. And this one, it's the force behind the world we see, we feel, everything. It connects the One to the material, the stuff, but it's another step removed. So it's inherently, less perfect than the intellect.
And that brings us to, well, us, right? This world, the material world that we're in. It's interesting how Neoplatonism sees this world as imperfect, compared to the One. It kind of resonates with me, actually, that feeling of always wanting more, always searching. You know what I mean?
That's a really, really good point. Neoplatonism, it suggests that this dissatisfaction, that yearning for something more, it comes from our soul. It's deep down, we recognize the limits of this world. It's a longing for a return to that perfect One where we came from.
So if we come from this perfect One, but we're stuck here, where do we go from here? Is there a way back?
That's the big goal in Neoplatonism, the journey back to the One. It's coming home, a return to our true source.
I have a feeling this journey is going to be harder than finding a parking spot downtown on a Saturday. How do we even start? What does Neoplatonism say?
It talks about a few key things we could do on this journey back. First, philosophical contemplation, to lift our minds up. Then seeking beauty in everything to awaken our souls. And then living a virtuous life, really trying to purify our intentions.
So it's not just sitting around waiting for something to happen. It's about actively working on ourselves, striving for something higher.
Absolutely. It's an active process of self-discovery, a deliberate climb towards the One.
Before we get into how Neoplatonism spread and all that, I got to ask about the Enneads. My sources say they're like required reading for anyone getting into this. Why are they so important?
The Enneads, they're a collection of Plotinus's writing, put together by his student, Porphyry. They're like your guidebook to Neoplatonism.
Yeah.
Imagine getting to read Plotinus's actual thoughts, his insights, his struggles with all this.
It's like the original deep dive, right?
The-
Plotinus wrestling with all this and then writing it all down for us.
Exactly. They cover everything from the nature of the one to like ethics and how the soul works. They're not like light reading,
No.
but they offer so much knowledge for anyone who's serious about understanding it all.
So if you want to go beyond just like the surface level and really grapple with the core of it all, you got to read the Enneads.
Absolutely. It's a tough but rewarding read.
Yeah, I can imagine. All right, so we've got the basics down, right? The one, emanation, hypostases, the journey back. But Plotinus wasn't just writing in a vacuum. His ideas, they spread, right? They influenced people. How did that happen? How did Neoplatonism as a whole make its mark on history?
So before the break, we were looking at the core ideas of Neoplatonism and those Enneads, Platonus's writings. But now let's zoom out a bit. How did Neoplatonism actually spread? Like, it went beyond ancient Greece, right? It even reached Islamic philosophy.
That's what blows my mind about these deep dives. You find these like unexpected connections between ideas that seem so different. I never would have thought that a philosophy from like ancient Greece would end up influencing Islamic thinkers so much.
It really shows you the power of ideas, right? They
Yeah.
can cross all these borders, geographical, cultural, and spark something new in places you'd never expect. Like during the Islamic Golden Age, there was so much intellectual energy, right? And Neoplatonism, it found a home there among Islamic scholars. Guys like Al-Kindi, Al-Farabi, Avicenna, they really got into it, weaving those Neoplatonic ideas into their own systems.
So they weren't just like copying Neoplatonism, they were like thinking about it, making it their own, mixing it with their own culture and religion.
That's it. They weren't just like passive students. They were actively shaping these ideas, looking at them through the lens of Islam and their own philosophical traditions. A real back and forth, a fusion.
Okay, give me some specifics. How did Neoplatonism actually change the thinking of these Islamic philosophers?
For sure. So Al-Kindi, he's seen as one of the first Islamic philosophers who was really influenced by Neoplatonism. He saw this deep link between Greek philosophy and what Islam teaches. He even interpreted the Quran, through that Neoplatonic lens, seeing the one and that concept of emanation right there in its verses.
So he was like building a bridge, connecting these two worlds of thought that seemed so different, ancient Greece and Islamic theology.
Exactly. He was a pioneer, bridging those traditions. Then you have Al-Farabi, another big name in Islamic philosophy. He built this really complex Neoplatonic system, his own version. He saw the one as Allah, and those divine emanations, he saw them as angels and celestial beings.
Wow, so he was creating this whole cosmology based on Neoplatonism, but within like an Islamic framework.
Nailed it. And maybe the most famous Islamic Neoplatonist was Avicenna, a true polymath. This guy did it all: medicine, philosophy, music. He brought Neoplatonism into his theories of medicine, psychology, everything. He built this whole view of humanity and our place in the universe, drawing heavily on those Neoplatonic concepts of, the soul, the hierarchy of existence.
It's amazing how they took these like ancient Greek ideas and applied them to so many different areas. It really shows how these core concepts were so powerful and flexible, wouldn't you say?
Totally. It's proof that these ideas resonated across cultures. They offered this way of understanding the universe and our place in it, a framework that transcended religion and geography.
This journey through the evolution of Neoplatonism is fascinating. Let's time travel a bit. Let's jump ahead to the European Renaissance. My sources say Neoplatonism was a big deal during that time, that period of like rediscovering knowledge and art and everything. What was it about Neoplatonism that really grabbed those Renaissance thinkers?
Well, the Renaissance was all about going back to classical learning.
Yeah.
They were kind of rejecting those rigid ideas of the Middle Ages. And Neoplatonism, it fit right in. I mean, it's rooted in Plato. It's all about beauty, harmony, knowledge. It was perfect for this spirit of like rediscovery and freedom of thought.
So it wasn't just about bringing back old art and literature, right? It was about reviving this whole way of thinking, a way of seeing the world infused with the ideas of Plato and Plotinus.
You got it. Neoplatonism, it was a system that celebrated what humans could do, what they could achieve. It fueled that Renaissance belief in the power of reason and creativity.
Okay, but can you give me some examples? Like, how did Neoplatonism shape the way people thought and created during the Renaissance?
Sure. So you had this idea of anthropocentrism, putting humans at the center of everything, that really took off during the Renaissance. And Neoplatonism, with its idea of the soul as this divine spark capable of connecting with the one, that resonated with Renaissance humanism. This whole idea of human dignity, potential, our capacity for greatness.
It's like Neoplatonism provided that intellectual energy for this ideal of human excellence, like a celebration of what humans could achieve.
Exactly. It provided that philosophical foundation for that Renaissance belief in the power of the human mind. To unlock the secrets of the universe, create beautiful things, reach new levels of understanding.
My sources also mention a big influence on Renaissance art. So how did that play out? Like in the paintings, sculptures, architecture of the time?
Oh, it's everywhere. In Neoplatonic thought, that pursuit of ideal beauty, that was central. Renaissance artists, they were trying to capture that in their work, studying classical forms, striving for harmony and balance. But they weren't just copying. They wanted to express the essence of beauty itself, which they believed came from, divine principles.
It wasn't just about the forms. It was about expressing a whole philosophy, a worldview.
Exactly. They saw themselves as like channels for something higher, expressing that divine spark that connects everything.
Okay, give me some concrete examples. How did this show up in specific works of art?
Think about Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. A perfect example. It's all about the human form as a microcosm of the universe, reflecting that belief in the interconnectedness of everything. Or, Michelangelo's incredible frescoes on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. God as the ultimate creator, and all those figures emanating from his divine power. A visual representation of that Neoplatonic idea of emanation.
Those are iconic images. They really capture the spirit of the Renaissance. It's amazing to see Neoplatonism shaping them, giving them that deeper meaning.
Absolutely. They're not just pretty pictures. They're expressions of a whole worldview, a way of understanding humanity and the cosmos, and Neoplatonism is right there at the heart of it.
We've come a long way in our exploration, haven't we? From ancient Greece to the Islamic Golden Age and now the Renaissance. It's incredible how these ideas have traveled through history, influencing philosophy, religion, art. But before we move on, there's one more thing. My sources talk about Platonic love in Neoplatonism. What does that mean?
Platonic love in Neoplatonism, it's not just about romance, It's about a higher kind of love, a yearning for beauty and truth that goes beyond the physical. It's like a force that pulls the soul back to the one.
So it's more like a spiritual longing, a desire for something that goes beyond the limits of this world, this physical existence.
Exactly. Think of it as like a ladder. We start by appreciating beauty here in the material world, but that's the first step. True Platonic love, it pushes us higher towards that ultimate beauty, the source of it all, which is the one itself.
It's like every time we appreciate something beautiful, whether it's art, music, nature, even another person, it's like taking a step on that journey back to the one.
Precisely. It's about seeing that reflection of the divine in everything and using that to fuel our journey, our ascent.
This exploration of Neoplatonism has been incredible. We've covered so much, but there's always more to discover. Get ready for the final part of our deep dive. We're going to look at some of the really mind-bending ideas like Plotinus's take on time and space, and we'll leave you with some big questions about your own place in this vast, interconnected universe.
We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back to our Neoplatonism deep dive. We've gone from the core ideas, the one, emanation, all that, to how it influenced Christianity, Islamic philosophy, the Renaissance. We even talked about Platonic love as this like driving force pulling us towards the one. But now, buckle up. We're going to look at some seriously mind-bending stuff, Plotinus's ideas about time and space.
Yeah, get ready to have your understanding of reality flipped on its head. Plotinus, he didn't see time and space as these absolute fixed things. To him, they were just properties of the sensory world, remember, that world furthest from the one.
So while we experience time as this line, always moving forward, and space as this like three-dimensional box we live in, Plotinus saw them as something different, almost like illusions.
Exactly. See, he believed that the one, it's perfect, complete, unchanging. So it has to exist outside of those limits, the limits of time and space as we get them. He said those concepts, they come from our limited perception, our senses tied to this material world.
Whoa. That's a lot to process. If time and space are just illusions, what does that even mean for, like, our reality? Does it make our lives meaningless?
Not at all, no. It actually suggests there's something deeper, something more real, beyond what we normally experience. Planets thought that through philosophy, through that inward journey, we could kind of break free from this illusion, this time and space thing, and we could then grasp the eternity and the unchanging nature of the One.
So it's about like going beyond our normal way of seeing things, connecting with this reality that's timeless, eternal.
You got it. And that journey of transcendence, that's striving to reach the One, that's what Neoplatonism's all about. It's about breaking free from those limitations and realizing, our true connection to the source of everything.
As we're talking about this, all this mystical stuff, it makes me think, these ancient ideas, they still speak to us today. That yearning for something more, to connect with something bigger than ourselves, that seems like a human thing, you know what I mean?
It really shows how powerful these ideas are. Neoplatonism, it might be old, but it speaks to something deep in us. Our search for meaning, our desire to connect, our longing to transcend, to go beyond. That's the human condition.
This deep dive, it's been incredible. We've explored so much of Neoplatonism, the core ideas, how it influenced different cultures, even those crazy implications for time and space. It's been a journey.
Absolutely. It's been great to unpack all this with you. And, we've only just scratched the surface here, but hopefully this gives you a good starting point, for your own exploration.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with something to think about. If everything comes from the One, like we've been talking about, where do you fit into this grand scheme? What steps can you take, no matter how small, to start your own journey back to that source? Remember, reaching the One, it's not about getting to a specific place. It's about the journey itself, discovering yourself, growing, realizing your true potential.
And don't forget those needs. They're out there. So much to discover in those pages. A whole world of knowledge just waiting.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Neoplatonism. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive for another adventure in the world of ideas.